Was there an Adam? Was there an Eve? Or did we evolve from what we conceived? Either way, we got what we needed when the sun shone down on the Garden of Eden.
Don't you know we're gonna have a Solartopia?
Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman, inviting you back to number 57, the Heinz number of our grassroots emergency election protection Zoom calls on protecting our elections, or what's left of them, and the desperate struggle we have between now and 2022 to hold on to our government. We have conducted 57, 56, 90-minute segments, and this will be another one. We have 66 people on the phone or on the Zoom from all over the country. It's an honor to have you with us, TATANKA. It's good to see you stationary and not in a car today. Or as we say in indigenous, mazel tov. We're also being carried on the Progressive Radio Network. This Zoom call will air at Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on prn.fm. We want to thank PRN for carrying this. We want to thank Mike Hirsch and Steve Caruso for engineering. We are co-convened by the great Joel Siegel, who's going to be filling us in on a lot of amazing stuff he's doing, including this fantastic roundtable, which we are expecting to have happen on August 30th in this year in Washington, D.C. I don't know if we're joined yet by a key figure in the DC statehood movement and is coordinating major actions on the weekend of August 27th, 8th, 9th, and 30th. And so we do want to be joined by him when he gets on. Joel, you may want to contact him if you can, remind him that the call is going on. Yes, Joel Siegel, my co-convener. You're right, you got to unmute.
Keep your hair short, Harvey. It looks great. Charles can't be on the call, and he's asked me to briefly fill in for him. And I want to welcome the legendary Rudy Arredondo.
Okay. Well, a lot of
legendary, the man
on the phone. So here's what we're going to do. Robert Wilson, a former Assistant Secretary of State in North Carolina, is going to make an opening statement about what we're facing here with the Republican assault. I then want to turn to Jan Goodman for a brief update on the Pacifica battle, which we talked about briefly last week, 2 weeks ago. And then we're going to go straight to Ray McClendon in Atlanta to talk to us about the Georgia Miracle Project. This call is, we get a lot of attention and a lot of information circulated, but we are really task-oriented and results-oriented. And one of the great things that has happened on these calls is that we did very important networking prior to the election in Georgia that brought us 2 US senators and changed the whole picture of American politics. And a lot of that had to do with the great Andrea, who really was a major networker, and putting her in touch with Ray is a big deal. So Ray is now going to, GLORIA TINUBU has joined us. So Ray and GLORIA will fill us in on what's going on with the Georgia Miracle Project, the amazing interviews they've been doing, and the book and movie that are being produced out of it. And then we'll turn to Joel and talk about the upcoming events in Washington, D.C., which are taking on monumental aspects. And I also want to play a 4-minute clip of Joe Biden, because Biden we finally had a president of the United States who has acknowledged the desperate attack on American democracy that we're all facing. This will be the longest clip we've ever played on these calls, but as someone who was introduced to this issue in an intense way back in 2004 and has witnessed 16 years of abuse taken by the election protection movement, it's actually quite a great moment to see the sitting president of the United States acknowledging problem is an understatement, of course. So that's a brief course of events that we're going to deal with. I would like to start briefly with Robert Wilson, former Assistant Secretary of State of the state of North Carolina. For a few moments, Robert, if you will tell us what you think we're up against. Then we're going to go to Jan and Pacifica, and then Joel and Ray. So Robert, if you'll take the floor, please, I appreciate it.
Well, Harvey, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. And Joel, thank you for inviting me, and to everyone that's listening, thank you for being here. You know, I'm Robert Wilson, and I live in North Carolina, and I'm of the opinion, you know, having worked in state government for many years and having dealt with a lot of legislation and stuff, that we're now at a serious inflection point here in the history of this country. And if we're not very careful, you know, especially in the next three elections, an election of 22, 24, and 26, they are going to be critical, and they will determine the outcome of our democracy. I strongly believe that there is going to be a push, not just in this state, but around the country, where people are going to try everything they could possibly do to make sure that they can control three things. And those three things, I think, are critical in any society or whatever culture or civilization or humanity or a nation or a population, whatever you want to call it. But those three essential foundations are whoever controls education, whoever controls who has access to capital, and whoever controls who is voting will be the one that will run that society. And it will not be based necessarily on the majority rule factor. I honestly believe now that it will be the civilian population in this country that will save this country. It won't be the politicians that we have in hand now, because the politicians that we have now, too many of them are interested in saving themselves as well as their elite. And we, as the civilian population, are the ones that's going to have to make the difference. Without a doubt, you're seeing legislation pop up all across the country that are trying to create voter suppression and keep people from voting. I've always believed, and having been a history major in college some 40 years ago, that the most important thing in any democracy or in any society is the ability to vote, because voting is power. Whoever has the ability to vote will determine what type of future they will or will not have. Right now, I'm afraid because of the Arizona ruling, there was a piece in there that said that if you voted out of your precinct, then they can throw that vote out now. What I'm afraid is getting ready to happen is you're going to have a lot of legislatures around the country, especially Republicans, that are going to be drawing new maps that are going to, when the consensus comes out in September, they're going to draw new maps, and in those maps, they're going to turn around and they're going to add some new districts and some new precincts, and they're going to put a lot of minorities into new precincts and not say a word about it. You're going to see a lot of those votes being cast out of those precincts, and they're going to be cast in new districts, not knowing map, because we usually have about a 2 to 3 year turnaround in terms of people learning what district they're in when they draw new maps. That's why we've always had legal fights here in North Carolina with map drawing. But one of the biggest problems that I think we're going to be confronted with is election nullification, where states are going to say, we now have control of our election. And the federal government cannot tell us what to do with our elections based on some of the legislation that's being passed all across the country. And if we get to a point where we are at election nullification, we must definitely remember that it was the administration prior to Joe Biden that elected 200 plus federal judges. And I'm quite sure that in each state, you will be able to find a judge that will sign off and say that an election will be nullified because of certain reasons. So we are at a serious inflection point. And if we don't come together as one generation of people and decide our own destinies, then we are destined for failure and despair. And I honestly believe that if we, the people of this country, don't come together and decide that this is our fight, and we're not going to wait for Washington to bring it to us, we are going to take it to Washington. And if it means changing the people in Washington, so be it. But it's about time that we have a voice in our own government. Thank you, Mark, Harvey, and Joel. I thank you immensely.
Well, that was a very important statement, Robert. I really appreciate it. We appreciate it. 74 people on the call. Does anyone want to make a quick comment about what Robert has said? Later in the call, when we get through our main business, we will revert. I have put up a piece at Reader Supported News, 30 ways that our democracy is being attacked. It's actually way more than 30. And, you know, this is, Robert, an important statement. Jeffrey, very quickly, and then anyone else who wants to chime in real quick. Oh, we got a lot of hands. Jeffrey, real quickly.
What you said was very interesting, you know, and we should be looking at other countries for inspiration because their democracies put ours to shame, if you know what I mean, right? Like those in like some countries in Europe, like Germany, that kind of thing. Nazism is completely illegal in Germany, but still their democracy outranks ours.
Robert, you want to respond?
Beg your pardon?
Okay, thank you, Jeffrey, for that. Let's move on to Joel Siegel. Joel?
Robert, honored to have a former Secretary of State and 2 administrations here with us, Undersecretary of State. The question I wanted to ask you is, if we don't organize out of our silos, how do we push back against Republican, white nationalist, Jim Crow fascism if we don't have funding and organization and strategy and a plan? Isn't that your concern?
That is very much my concern. You know, that we keep trying to piecemeal this, you know, and we can't piecemeal this. It's going to take everybody pushing in the right direction at the right time. You know, it's not an individual thing. This is about us collectively, not individually. And we have got to work together. We've got to put what little dollars we got together, and we got to come up with a plan. And we got to be willing to accept that plan as what we're going to do.
Agree, Charles. Robert, very well stated. And thank you. Ruth Strauss, and then Sudi Farokinia. Ruth?
Yeah, hi. This is really upsetting, and of course it's going to go on in every state in the country, and particularly in the southern states. During this last election, there was an app called CSA where you could report any irregularities, and I wonder if anybody can get the ACLU involved in something like this, or the National Lawyers Guild, or some way where, you know, there is documentation of this kind of thing, and then, you know, lawsuits, recounts, etc., that can go on. But obviously we have to have a strategy now, and work on it and seal up all the holes before 2022 arrives. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruth. Very well stated. Sudi.
Hi, thank you so much. So one is on the 3 topics that are very important. Totally agree on those. But what are your thoughts on the 4th one, which is control of resources? Because what I see within the US, where there's migration into control of the water mainly, and then outside of US, especially with China and infringing on water lines around the country, around the world. But the other topic is that, as Jeffrey mentioned, I did live in Germany. I have close ties to Germany. And when I came to the United States and found out that there were only 2 viable parties, I always considered United States having a broken democracy. And for years, I was no party preference until Bernie convinced me to become a Democrat. And when I talk about democracy in the past, especially 4 or 5 years, those that were Trumpism or those that were not supportive of either one of the parties would always remind me that this is not a democracy, it's a republic. And and also that this country was never meant to be a secular. So my question is, when we are saying to save democracy, and you get back, was meant to be a democracy. It's supposed to be a republic. It was never meant to be secular. What's the answer?
Okay, I'm going to have to jump in on that one real quick. It was meant to be secular. Although these guys are running around, these right-wing evangelicals are saying that the United States is a Christian country. None, except for George Washington, who was kind of a Christian. He was famous because he walked out of church early. If you'd asked him, he would have said he was a Christian. But John Adams, Abigail Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, Thomas Paine, James Madison, James Monroe, Ethan Allen, none of these guys, Patrick Henry, none of these guys were Christians. They were all Unitarians or deists or atheists. And even Washington, who was the only Christian among them, was very clear that the United States of America was meant to be a secular country. And he wrote a letter to a synagogue in Rhode Island specifically saying that. So, we were never meant, the ones on in the back, we were never meant to be a Christian country. And of course, before the whites came here, you had indigenous governments. Someone's got to mute. You had indigenous governments, most famously the Iroquois, and they were certainly not Christian. So this has never been meant to be. Whatever these evangelicals say is historically inaccurate. And as I say, all the famous white male founders of this country were not Christians and never meant the United States to be Christians, a Christian country. The word Christian, the name of Jesus, does not appear in the Constitution for a very specific reason. And if you read the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. It's right there off the top. So now, in terms of democracy, you should never ask a history professor a question like this. You're going to get a lecture. Very quickly, we've always been a mixed government. Yes, we're a republic, as Ben Franklin said when he walked out of the Constitutional Convention, but we've always had a democratic, small d, thing to it. The town meetings in New England, strictly democratic, although they didn't let women or slaves vote, but nonetheless, so we've always been a mixed bag, a combination of a democracy and a republic. I'm sure that's way more than you wanted to hear. Robert, did you want to jump in on that, or should we move ahead?
No, we should move ahead. I thought that was
okay.
an excellent.
Jed Pauker, go ahead, please, and then TATANKA.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate very much what Robert's saying. I want to remind us all that if we do manage to get together, if we do manage to organize, if we do manage we did it 2020, we will win. We will get there because we do have the resources, we have the energy, and we are already getting people, which is important, back into the streets now. That's a big deal. A lot of people are getting into the streets now, and it's very important that more people understand that it's not a battle, it's not a series of battles, but it's a long war, and we've got to win it with the vote. I'll let it stop there. Thanks so much.
Thank you. TATANKA?
Yeah, thank you, Robert. Strong statement. Everybody on this call, I think, is in agreement with this. The DC March on Washington is meant to build a coalition, and the meeting on Monday afterwards with the leadership that Joel is organizing, the roundtable, is critically important. It'll be the culmination of a lot, but it'll be the beginning of something even bigger. Everyone on this call, I don't care how far away from Washington, DC you are, can participate, because we expect to have other live actions and, most importantly, a virtual event for this. So everyone be involved. Secondly, in California, those of us around the Romero Institute, working with Dolores Huerta and others, are organizing a California Green New Deal that we expect to pass in the state of California in 2022 and be a leader for the nation, where we will get to climate neutral in 10 years or less, not the 30-year corporate Biden plan. So you can all, I just put into the chat, greencal.org, where you can click on it and urge Governor Newsom to declare a state of climate emergency, which is absolutely critically important. So when the wildfires come big time, he will be doing the press conference declaring a state of climate emergency so we can have an omnibus bill and actually get this thing done and not get it dragged down in the legislature. And lastly, I'd like to ask if you have anything to say about what you said about education.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Go ahead, Robert.
Okay, education is critical because education is the foundation for economic success. And there has always been, and there always will be, this tendency to try to control education. I'll give you a prime example, like here in North Carolina. In North Carolina, in the last 5 to 6 years, we have gone from what we call the grading scale, from a 7-point grading scale to a 10-point grading scale. And in my opinion, that was done to dumb it down in public education. And now that they have done that, you are beginning to, especially since we had this last year with COVID, there's something fundamentally wrong when a kid can pass in high school with a 65 average. And I don't know nowhere in the world that a kid can go and he's just learning 65% of what he or she should know to try to survive, and especially in this economy. When you're talking about an economy that's based on STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And if you are letting kids now slide by, and we've always had a problem in rural North Carolina with internet connection, we don't have that. Now you're allowing them to pass grades, because in the next 2 years, you're going to see it all across the country. You're going to see an awful lot of kids being socially promoted. They won't have the education that they should, educational level that they should have, and they're going to blame it on COVID. But they're going to tell us that, look, we need to promote these kids because they're going to feel left behind. So you're going to see a big push by states all across the country for social promotion within the next year or two. And we have got to fight that.
We're also looking at this nonsense of, this racial, what are they calling it? They were up in arms about censoring Dr. Seuss. The right wing in this country, the evangelicals, they hate Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss gave us, the Lorax, for God's sakes. And now they're talking about this. I can't even say what it is. Some
critical race theory.
What is it?
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory, total nonsense. But all it is, it's a foot in the door, a nose under the tent to try and take control of what's taught in our schools. And what you said, Robert, is 100%. And then you have legislatures passing laws about what teachers can teach. That is fascism, pure and simple. And we gotta watch out for? Justin and then Gloria?
Well, on that, I would also say, Harvey, that education is the foundation. And we definitely have to understand that with this culture that they claim that is called critical culture, it is nothing but an assault on people telling the truth about history. Because
Absolutely.
if people really knew the truth about history of this country, then this country would be an entirely different place. And if
Absolutely.
other people knew what their foundation was based on, this would be an entirely different country.
Absolutely. Justin and then Gloria?
So my aim is to work with guys like Daniel Wolfe on bringing out that history, and the best way to do so, historically speaking, has been through guys like Thurgood Marshall and his Legal Defense Fund. And basically, he was able to get issues put into the legal journals and get them argued in various cases. And eventually, when he became a Supreme Court justice, he was able to actually set the tone for a lot of the country. And so the way to do that in the terms that Ruth Strauss brought up is to get quality of data on basically voter feedback, voter experience feedback. Were you able to vote? How difficult was it to vote? All these sorts of things, and get that standardized so that we can get it into submission as evidence so that we can get some actual legal standing with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also want to make a couple of points on participation in all of this, and specifically on religion. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was a lot of the North Carolina and Georgia churches that organized the Get Out the Vote effort for the Georgia Miracle.
Okay. Gloria TINUBU, you want to comment on that? Gloria?
Well, I don't want to comment on that, but I want to comment on the original thing I wanted to comment on.
Okay. After you, we're going to have Dennis Bernstein and then Brian Blakely. Go ahead, Gloria, please.
Okay, so back to this question of, can you hear me? I'm in another country. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this question of democracy, I just want to be clear that this country was founded as a business proposition between the Crown of England and these investors in colonization. My connection is bad. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
You're all right, go ahead.
But so, and the fundamental constitution of the 16th to prevent democracy from happening in this country. So there's always been a push against democracy by people who controlled resources and controlled government, and it's always been a minority dominating the majority. So I know my connection is bad.
Hey, thank you, done. Point well taken. Dennis Bernstein. Dennis, and then Brian. Dennis Bernstein, you got to unmute, brother. Hello, Dennis? Okay, I think he lowered his hand. Brian, and then we're going to move on. I do want to have Jan Goodman talk to us real quick, and then we're going to go and talk about the Georgia Miracle. Brian Blakely?
Okay.
Wait, Dennis just hooked up.
Oh, Dennis, you got in. Okay, Dennis.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me
Go
now?
ahead, Dennis.
All right. So everybody remember when Bork was rejected from the court, and he went from being a name to being a verb, as in, I was borked. You've been borked? Well, right now, if things don't change, we're really about to be mansioned. I want to coin a phrase. That means having your vote suppressed by a Democrat. And I think that a lot of attention, a great deal of attention and activism needs to go in the direction. Now, just this comment, and then I'll shut up. This thing about separation of church and state, that's where I come into the world. I have an uncle named Leo Pfeffer who argued some of the key cases in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s before the Supreme Court, who wrote beautifully about the cruciality of that church-state thing. And it doesn't show up in the... What's that? I'm sorry? Am I off? Hello?
Dennis, go ahead. Just get to the point if you can. Thanks.
So it's in my soul, but I'm coming back to mention, I really think there needs to be a national action. It has to be the anti-Manchin action. This man has to feel the weight of the people, or we're going to be in trouble.
I agree with that, absolutely. Thank you, Dennis. And again, Dennis is the great commentator on KPFA in Berkeley, syndicated nationwide. My favorite radio commentator. Great to have you with us, Dennis. We hope you keep coming on. Brian Blakely, then George Ripley, and then I do want to give Jan Goodman a quick minute to tell us about an election that's being denied. Go ahead, Brian, and then George.
Okay, thank you. You know, this talk about education as a way to economic success is well and good. We all need to eat our heads, but and the conversation took this turn a little bit, but I just want to emphasize that you know, a fundamental purpose of our education needs to be to teach our children how to citizen, to coin Baratunde, I've forgotten his last name, phrase. So, you know, I would wonder how many people can recite the preamble to the Constitution. And if you ever think seriously about it, because that is the purpose which we have a government, and that's where our educational process needs to start. When you start to learn about history, reflecting on the preamble, which is a statement of why we have a constitution, the purpose of having a constitution, and how to be a citizen. And I just think that's so fundamental. All this emphasis on economy to the side. Okay, thanks.
I do want to put a plug. I knew Howard Zinn very well, and he got my first book published, actually. And his History of the United States is Essential. And I will be publishing in the next month what I hope would be, basically it's Howard's book 40 years later on LSD. And that's going to be, I'm going to publish it in about a month. It's called The People's Spiral of US History. So I appreciate that. And it's essential we know our history, and certainly that we know what this attempt to delete our basic elections is all about. I do want to turn, and Robert Wilson, do you want to put in another word before I turn it to Jan Goodman?
Yeah, I would simply say that we need to totally understand that this is not about us individually. It's not about us, but the state. This is about us collectively. This is about a way of life that we will choose to live. And our politicians today are not doing the job. And we must make a difference ourselves. It will be the civilian citizens of this country that will make the difference. And that difference will start with, number one, voting and making sure that voter suppression is not and will not survive, as well as we must understand that there is going to be a serious push by the states if the Republicans take over any House or the Senate in 2022, there's going to be a big push by them to go to states' rights or election nullification to become the law of the land for 2026 and
I
beyond.
agree 100%. You're 100% right, and that's what a lot of these calls are about. I do want to acknowledge the trip call and Molly Basler, our candidate for Los Angeles City Council. Great to have you on. I do want to turn very quickly to Jan Goodman. Jan, if you're with us, Jan has been running a campaign to democratize the Pacifica Radio Network. She's just won a major election battle, which is being denied. And Jan, are you with us?
I'm with you. I'm
okay,
hiding somewhere on your screen. Hi. So first of all, I wanted to apologize. Last week we ended up having to cancel.
Oh yeah, we canceled a meeting. That's right, on Saturday. But
yeah, and then
go ahead, Jan. Tell people now. It's okay. Tell people now exactly what has happened. You've won a major victory.
Okay, so let me just tell you what the victory was, because it's a pretty impressive. There were there were a total of 12,292 people who voted in this bylaws referendum, which is the largest turnout that Pacifica has ever seen. And 56% of those people, 6,820, voted yes, and 44%, 5,471, voted no. However, the entrenched minority had a special tack to rig the election, in which they claim that an inapplicable small bylaw, they claim that it's applicable, and then they twisted it in a way to declare that they won because 70 out of 436 staff members, 255 of them voted no. So, and 180 voted yes, and they took this inapplicable bylaw and California state statute and said, oh, and therefore it negates the election. And there was we had agreed to an arbitration agreement that this was supposed to be arbitrated, but Pacifica has refused to arbitrate it. So now it looks like we're going to have to pursue our legal remedies, and we will be doing that. And in the meantime, it's a big struggle, but the important part of it for me is that this is a movement of the listeners of Pacifica. It's not just some, couple of people in the corner that was claimed that that's what we are. When you have 6,800 people, you are not a small force in even in the United States. It was a regular election. So that's where we are. So we are going to continue on this fight. And I believe that this is a stumbling block. It is merely a stumbling block. And just as evidence of that stumbling block nature of it, the national board realizing that is handing out golden parachutes. So the person who was volunteering as an interim executive director, they decided to give her a salary, which I don't mind people getting a salary for their work, but they gave her a 6-month contract, and there's no reason to do that other than the fact that they knew that they were on the way out, and they're like handing out golden parachutes.
So Jan, I want to emphasize the importance of the Pacifica Network. These are 5 major cities with radio stations, 200 affiliates that we should be able to use as an election protection movement to further democracy in this country. And basically a junta has stepped in and taken over to nullify, just like Robert said, to nullify an important election, a critically important election, to change the bylaws of the network. Jan, can you tell us how to get a hold of you? And I cannot overstate Jan Goodman's devotion to this. She is an incredibly effective attorney and activist and has done miracles at Pacifica. I guarantee all of you listening to this call, you have a Pacifica affiliate in your town that we need to use to further democracy in this country. And it ain't gonna happen unless Jan and the New Day Pacifica win. Jan, can you tell us how, please, people can get a hold of you?
Sure. My email address, and thank you, Harvey, for putting this in the larger context. The only reason that I'm involved in Pacifica at all is the importance of Pacifica, the central importance of it in terms of the media landscape and what the potential of Pacifica has for influencing progressive and pushing progressive politics forward. So my email address is Jan Goodman, JANGOODMAN, jangoodman.kpfk@gmail.com, jangoodman.kpfk@gmail.com. And if you email me, and then we can get in communication, and we can phone each other and talk about this. And we do need help. And this issue is, as I say, a very big national issue, especially at this point in the way that they are trying, that they have actually tried throughout this election to stop this movement from going forward, and stopped our mailings and stopped our communication to the members. And they've done that again. They've taken away our ability to communicate with all of the members. So thank you. I really appreciate having the moment here, and I so appreciate this whole election protection ongoing series. And I want to say that I will make a pitch for a book that I've been reading that details how politics works on a grassroots level. Dennis Kucinich's new book called The Division of Light and Power is it is a page turner, and every chapter, practically every page, gives you an insight into how politics and local politics and all the many ways of it doing that. So I just wanted to recommend that book because I just finished it, and
okay.
I wasn't that interested in reading it, and by the time I finished, it was great. So thank you.
Okay, so Jan, people do contact you next week. In next week's Zoom call, we will put the chat up, the contact up for a better organized group meeting. It was my fault last week. We will have a good organized meeting on Pacifica in a week. We'll arrange it. I can't overstate the importance of the Pacifica network here. And we really needed, Jan is doing incredible work. And the coup d'etat that's being staged by this junta is a classic example of how you kill democracy. So we will have more on this as we go along. Thank you so much, Jan. Much appreciated.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And we are really rolling here on time. God, we've gone all through. It's all already 6 minutes before the hour. Jan, again, thank you. We'll see you.
And I'm putting my contact information in the chat also.
Yes. So it's an honor and a privilege to work with Jan Goodman, and please do contact her if you're at all interested in saving the Pacifica network. Okay, I had some hands, and then we're going to go to Ray McClendon to talk, and GLORIA to talk about the Georgia miracle. Let's do these quick. George Ripley, you are up, then Mary and Steve and Glenn, okay? And then we'll go to Ray McClendon, Joel Siegel, and Gloria TINUBU to talk about the Georgia miracle, okay? George Ripley?
Thank you, Harvey. I won't take up your time. I put my comments in the chat, and they were for Sudi. on the significance of the difference between a republic and a democracy and how that becomes at times. And it's an important question that Sudi asked.
All right, thank you very much, George. Much appreciated. Mary?
Hello, I'm gonna try to make quick 5 points. All right, guys?
Please.
First of all, I was a person that was pushed through the school system. I didn't even know how to spell my middle name when I got out of school. So this has been an ongoing
Is your middle
problem.
name anti-disestablishmentarianism? Sorry, I couldn't resist. Go ahead.
Yeah, but that's funny. You know, I couldn't even spell my name Catherine, but I could spell Rolaids because the TV taught me. All right. Secondly, one of the things that separates the everyday student from the elitist student is we do not teach law. I really think in elementary school, we need to teach our children citizen law. In junior high, we need to teach them government law. And in high school, we need to teach them business law. So our younger people that are coming into the world will have a better grasp of what's going on.
Okay, then Mary, is that it? Mary, did we lose you? All right, Mary.
Yes, you did. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Go ahead then, real quick.
All right.
We want to get to Ray and the GLORIA miracle here.
All right. Next is the fact that people don't realize that George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and many of our founding fathers were found guilty as anarchists by the Crown and were supposed to be arrested and were able to avoid arresting. But in today, America, sadly, anarchism and our anarchist constitution is a dirty word and it needs to be stopped. And then finally, people don't realize, they say that they don't know what the forefathers wanted us to do. They don't understand the template completely. And what I'm going to tell you is it's supposed to be a trickle up system, not a trickle down. And what I mean by this is only a town has a right to pass any laws that govern the citizens. And it's only supposed to write laws to protect the individual rights of that citizen to all the things that were afforded to them in the Declaration of Independence. And thereby a county only has rights to pass laws that protect one city's actions from another city's actions that would infringe upon those said rights. Furthermore, the state government is only supposed to be writing laws to protect one county's actions from another county's actions that would infringe upon the rights of those citizens within that county. And the federal government has no jurisdiction in the people. They only have jurisdiction on writing laws that protect one state's actions from another state's actions from infringing on their inherent natural rights.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that, Mary. Much appreciated. Glenn, and then we're going to go talk about the Georgia Miracle, and we're going to bring in TATANKA BRICCA to talk about our plans for the end of August. Glenn Reihing, and then we're going to go to Joel Siegel and Ray McClendon.
Thank you. Very good talk, Mr. Wilson. I totally agree with exactly what you're saying. You hit the nail on the head. My question is this: what do you think that we need to do at a state level in order to do this? Because the way I think you're right. I think what's going to happen is they're not going to have to overturn elections by numerous states. They're only going to need a couple of states like Georgia, Arizona, and Texas, which comes to mind. So they're not going to have to, it's not going to have to be a nationwide effort, but it's going to have to be more of a concerted effort in a small states. So what would you say would be a call to action as to how to kind of combat this on a state level?
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. And that's a good question. And I would simply say to you that what we need right now, more than anything, is we need for the Department of Justice to go back and we need for Congress to mandate that every state that has a history of voter suppression needs to have their laws pre-cleared before an election is done. that is the best way right now that all states can come together and ask Congress for just that little bitty piece that they got in the legislation, which is pre-clearance by the Justice Department for states to enact certain laws. And that will put a big damper, if not actually stop voter suppression all across the country.
Now that basically is SB 4, House Rule 4 of the John Lewis bill, which restores that pre-clearance condition to the Civil Rights Act, or the Voting Rights Act that was attacked by John Roberts in the Supreme Court. Am I right about that, John? Robert Wilson?
You're right, but I would simply say, even if we have to pull that one piece out of that bill, it will be just that critical, because pre-clearance will actually put, if not kill, a lot of voter suppression, because most Southern states have a history of voter suppression, and that's where you're getting your push from.
You got it. Okay, MYLA RESON wanted to jump in. Then Ray McClendon.
Yeah, Robert, Mr. Wilson, would pre-clearance in that legislation address the problem of election nullification? Or
Yes,
is it
ma'am.
something? It would. Okay,
It
that's
would.
all. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, MYLA. Okay, we got a couple of people waiting, but I want to give Ray McClendon, he's been waiting for the full hour, a chance to, these calls, as I said, are result oriented. We've got 77 people on the call right now. And Ray, one of the results that comes out of our Zoom is the Georgia Miracle Project. Can you tell us about it and where you stand on it?
Sure. Thanks, Harvey.
Ray is the political director of the Atlanta NAACP and an integral part of all this activity. So go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, thanks so much, Harvey. And it's always a pleasure to be on your calls and be here for number 57. As you mentioned, as an outgrowth of this call, we decided to chronicle the Georgia Miracle and really look at what went into the success of both the general election and in November and the runoff in January. And really talk about the grassroots activities that led to those extraordinary successes, because we think that those tactics, those strategies are not only important just to chronicle for history, but they can be replicated in all the battleground states. So we took it upon ourselves, with the help of Steve Rosenfeld, Joel Siegel, GLORIA, TINUBU, and Harvey, to begin to do a series of interviews with the people who actually did the work on the ground. The easy, lazy way to look at it is, well, it was all about Stacey Abrams. We all love Stacey, but this was a grassroots effort from across the state, from thousands of volunteers, many of whom have been involved for decades in civic engagement. The important thing here to be looked at is this: indeed, what happened in Georgia can be replicated. We wanted to document it, elaborate on what tools were used in Georgia, and then determine how we can put this information together so that it can be innovatively used in other states. This really focuses a lot of attention on the very things that Brother Wilson has been talking about. You need to have statewide strategies on attack these different laws and policies and tactics that are being put in place, so that we can overcome by the power of the ballot. And we've put together approximately 15 different interviews now. We're transcribing those interviews, and thanks to Steve Rosenfeld and to Harvey, we are going to be transcribing those and collating them into book format, first of all, where we'll be talking about all of the various ways that we came together. Community-based organizing is a critical part of what is missing in the American voting infrastructure. So when we talk about how do you respond to voting nullification, legal is one, but registration, education, and mobilization are all critical, and they must be done and invested in year round. That's a major part of the problem that we have had, is that the party systems only reward during voting season. They do not have, in most instances, relationships on an ongoing basis with communities. So thanks to groups like many that are represented on this call, you invested in us who were investing in grassroots activities in different communities. Those activities are ongoing, and what that translates into is having trusted messengers who can go into communities and make a difference in getting the vote out. Whereas parties love, especially the Democratic Party, loves to put money in radio and TV ads, and it becomes a race for who can raise the most money and who can have the most ads on TV. That does not work in most Black and brown communities. And that's what will make the difference. As many of you will recall, Jamie Harrison raised over $100+ million in South Carolina and still lost by 14 points. We think that there is a way to combat that, even if only a tenth, a fifth of that money had been put into investing in communities and in relational organizing. That will make the difference. So these transcripts are being collated. They will be transformed over the next few weeks. We'll put them into a draft book form, and we'll be getting them out to other organizers in battleground states, and then pushing this information out also through the great network of progressive organizations around the country, so that everybody understands what many of you began to understand when we started this process last fall, which is, let's invest in the communities, invest in the people, and that is what will get them as valuable voters by letting their voices be heard. And they will be heard through that kind of process, not by some spending millions, and in the case of the runoffs, hundreds of millions of dollars on radio and TV ads, which just canceled each other out, and people got numb to them. So we want to take this and put it into play in this fall's municipal elections, and then of course have that as a trial run, so that we'll have this kind of investment infrastructure in community ready for 2022.
It's fantastic. Fantastic what you're doing. I want to segue. Let me give a real quick LYNNE FEINERMAN a jump in here. She hasn't spoken yet. And then I want to go to TATANKA and Joel to talk about the upcoming events in DC, which are going to play right from the Georgia Miracle Project. LYNNE FEINERMAN, did you want to jump in real quick?
Yeah, I just want to simply say that I totally support what Robert Wilson said, and we really need to look at it straight up, that if we don't get the DOJ to be able to exercise the pre-clearance law, then we're in deep shit. And
oh, no, go ahead.
She can't use that word when we're broadcasting.
No, actually, yeah. Lynn, okay, the other one. Okay, go ahead, unmute her, please. Go ahead, unmute her, please. Yeah. Thank you.
I apologize, I forgot.
That's all right.
And
thank you, Mike.
We really need to I've been disturbed because I felt that while we're talking a lot lately, we don't have anything practical to do at overall nationwide movement. And there's plenty of network. I mean, Andrea Miller alone has a nationwide network, and we need to be able to express through this nationwide network that we have to give Garland that power, that pre-clearance power, because there is a grave danger that SB1 will not pass.
Yes, I agree entirely. Okay, Ruth Strauss, real quick, and then we're going to go to TATANKA and Joel to talk about what's happening at the end of August. Ruth, real quick, and then TATANKA and Joel.
Okay, thanks. This is for Ray. If you could just briefly, I contributed to Jamie Harrison's campaign, and I was blown away that he didn't win. You could just briefly state why you thought he didn't. That's one quick thing. And the other thing is, unbelievably, I just got an email. I'm not usually a contributor to Common Cause at all. I kind of see them as a kind of liberal organization, but I just got an email from them that they have a gerrymandering and redistricting project. So I'll forward it to Harvey, and maybe he can forward it to you, Ray, and you can see whether you want to network with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Okay, Ray?
Sure, yeah, well, real quickly, and this is not my speculation, this came from some of the groups operating out of South Carolina. They did not do any door-to-door canvassing.
God.
That was critical, and that was based upon the Democratic Party because of the pandemic making that call. In Georgia, what we did was we educated our grassroots volunteers on doing socially distanced, safe canvassing. We also did a lot of different events where we let people on a socially distanced, safe basis based on CDC guidelines. So there were different ways that we connected with voters in their communities that, from our understanding, did not happen in South Carolina. And this came from South Carolina activists who were helping us in Georgia for the runoff. So I'm speaking not just from speculation, but from people who wanted to make sure that we didn't make the same mistake going into the January 6th runoffs. But as you know, we had to fight that because we had to come and plead to folks like you all to get us the money, because we could not get the party to support us even in an indirect way in many cases.
Well, they are, penny wise and pound foolish and stupid. But anyway, thank you. Take your show on the road to other states because this Delta may still be around. But I applaud you. And yes, canvassing in health restriction, following the health guidance is a great idea. Thank you.
That's the very purpose of the book. Thanks.
Yes, we'll hopefully get it documented. TATANKA and Joel, do you want to jump in now and tell us what's going to happen at the end of the month?
You want to go first, Joel? I'll fill in the blanks.
Well, I'll start, and then I also want to invite Rudy Arredondo, president of the Latino Farmers and Ranchers Trade Association. But basically, we've all heard the same narrative today that it's time for unity, that the issues that face us, whether it's saving our democracy, climate change, ending poverty, it cannot be done by having siloed organizations, because we haven't really dealt with, like, climate change can threaten our civilization. And it is, and it's already happening. Just look at the droughts, fires out west. Look at what's happening in Europe. All that flooding was the climate change. Number two, the right wing's power, the white nationalist, Jim Crow fascists, and I don't use those words lightly. I really do believe it's an ideology that is quite popular now, and we have to get used to those words, because people might find it offensive. It's what I see as the actions that are being taken by the nationalist, fascist, and authoritarian. If we're going to fight for the saving our planet and saving our democracy, we cannot remain in our silos, because that's a prescription for failure. So what's happening on August the 30th, Monday, at a very prominent progressive Black church is we're going to bring together leaders from across the country who represent DC statehood, climate change, clean energy, election protection, ending poverty. And we're going to form a national justice coalition, and we're going to create a global justice coalition. You cannot address climate change without global action. We're bringing in ambassadors from Africa. We're going to bring in people from Europe. I hope Thomas Poga is still here. He's one of the key people working in this field. And then it'll be an action-oriented conference where we're going to talk about what are we going to do to form this coalition. We're going to announce the coalition in the press. We're going to have a monthly call. We're going to get funded. We're going to hire organizers. We're going to have chapters on campuses. So that's the roundtable. Then there's going to be marches during the weekend because it's the I Have a Dream commemoration of Martin King's speech. Harvey has been and talking about a really cool idea, and that's turning the White House into a greenhouse, having a drum circle, and actually delivering a solar panel to the White House. And we're having some colleagues who are experts in the field of solar engineering are going to come up with what that would look like. You know, a green White House. So we're not just talking fantasy. We're really going to do this. Why are we doing this? And I'll close, by saying it's real simple: to save our planet from 8 or 9 energy barons who would like to destroy the planet using gas and oil and coal so they can have yachts and big houses. So it's antithetical to human reason and logic to let 7 or 8 people destroy the planet when you can use alternative, renewable, clean energy. If we don't save our democracy, if we don't eliminate the filibuster, the electoral college, and gerrymandering, we will be ruled by right-wing fascists. And the electoral college is very dangerous because you get elected without the majority vote. So someone like a DeSantis in Florida, the governor, can get elected. He's smarter than Trump. He's better looking. But Trump came in through the electoral college, not through the majority vote. Don't think for a second that a fascist who won 75 million voters cannot do the same thing with another candidate. Well, anyway, I'm finished. This is very exciting. This all really started from Charles Moreland and Harvey and everyone who has been on this call. From my heart, thank you so much for caring and being on this call. TATANKA. Yeah.
And Joel, you've been a great co-convener. I do want to jump in very quickly and mention, as only a father could do, that my daughter is on the call, Shoshi Wasserman. Great to see you. She's 22, about to go to graduate school in social work. So very proud of her, and I hope you'll indulge there's a Jewish word called kvel, Kvell, and that's what I'm doing right now. Okay, TATANKA BRICCA. Give us a hi, Shoshi.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome, Soshi.
Another Wasserman. Wow.
You got it. She has passed. She is really a remarkable trooper, and will be a great social worker, and has been a great daughter for all 22 years. So glad to have you with us. Okay, TATANKA, I'm glad to see you're not in a car today. So do give us, there are 77 people on the call.
Oh, thank you, Harvey. It's such a pleasure to be working with you and Joel and Charles. And welcome, Soshi. Everybody should bring their Soshis to the next call. I mean, we need young people involved with all of this. We're the elders, okay? And we need to be turning this over and being elders. To that, we need to invite in young people. Okay, so, and to model that, I've been asked to chair and bring together Indigenous people as part of this march and as part of everything we're doing on that weekend, the 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th. So Chase Iron Eyes will be coming out here, and he will be coming with his daughter, Takata, okay?
All right.
So Soshi, I don't know if you've met Takata, but she's an amazing leader. And she's just an amazing leader. So Chase is going to be working with DC, coordinating the Indigenous part of all this. The recent idea of having a drum circle on Sunday morning prior to the Sunday afternoon roundtable is an excellent idea. This would be at Lafayette Park. It would be a circle with 4 corners with 4 mics that are solar powered. There will be speakers. And I will be talking with Chase. He's been in and out of communicable country. He's on the road right now. We're talking either later tonight or in the morning to see if he will take charge of that or appoint somebody with it. So he's bringing in his daughter and a lot of young people who most people don't realize it was the young people who actually sparked Standing Rock. It was their march that sparked the elders to get involved and then everybody to get involved. So that's in process. Also exploring the idea of a boycott, focusing on either Manchin or Sinema or McConnell or whomever to break up this logjam. If it happens, it's going to happen on the day of the march and announced at the leadership march. I want to applaud the design of this, particularly to those who started this, which is Harvey and Joel et al., for having a round table to bring together the leadership of a large organization. This will be the culmination of a lot of disparate people coming together in the very beginning of a very powerful national and global coalition. And by coalition, I mean we need everybody. We need everybody who is committed to DC statehood, green jobs, and justice. So to have a conference on Monday after all the tens of thousands of people have gone home to plan out, okay, next week, the following week, the next 3 elections, as the first speaker spoke of, is critically important. We need on the ground organizing. And as Joel said, something that is international, actually critically important, something where we have regular communications, something where there will be people organized in every state, and something where we have young people involved with those of us that are older in leadership positions. So I'm very excited about this. There'll be more to report as we go along. Thank you.
Great. So thank you for that, TATANKA. Let's run through real quick the plan for the weekend. August 7th, I'm sorry, is a Friday. And Charles Moreland and the DC statehood organizations are planning a banquet that night. I'm not sure exactly where, but he'll tell us in a call. Charles is tied up right now. On Saturday, there'll be marches, including at Government Plaza, Freedom Plaza, involving the Reverend Al Sharpton and his organizations. And this will be a mass coalition march, an outdoor march, and that is the 58th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. So there will be a presence at the Lincoln Memorial as well. On Sunday, there will be a prayer breakfast, again at a place unknown that Charles Moreland and the DC statehood people are organizing that. And then on Monday, we will have around 10:30 in the morning, we will be at Lafayette Park and across from the White House. Hopefully there will be a drum circle. We're working on that. We will have a battery powered amp system so that we don't have to bring in a solar panel, but the battery will have been charged by solar energy. We'll have speakers off a microphone intermittent with the drumming. And then around 12:30, probably about noon, we will present to the White House a solar panel. And that panel will either be for electric or for hot water, depending on, or we may have one of each, we'll see. Ron Leonard is on the call, and he's the expert on the technology that we'll be dealing with. So it'll be solar powered through a battery with an amp or 4 amps from a microphone that'll be in the middle of the drum circle. We're discussing now whether we need to apply for a permit on this. There are plenty of things that happen in Lafayette Park without permits. And then we will march across the street, or somebody from the out to us, and we will deliver not only a solar panel, but also a plan to the White House, and we'll have an image so that the White House can be 100% renewable powered. We want the White House to be the first official residence of the chief executive that will be 100% renewable. And so that's the plan. And then after that, around 1 o'clock, we will convene. Joel, what is the name of the church that we will be in? And if you want to give us a few of the names of the people who have already committed to being at this roundtable. And again, this is not just for speechifying. We need to form and upgrade and update and move ahead with a national network. And I want to commend, by the way, Robert Wilson. He said that we should prepare for the 2022, 2024, and 2026 elections. I want to congratulate him on his optimism that will actually be an election in 2026, because if things go the wrong way in 2024, there very well could not be. And we have to understand that. So Joel, who do we have lined up for this roundtable on August 30th in DC at 1 o'clock?
Let's see. So it's the legendary activist, Reverend Graylin Hagler. He's the senior minister of Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ. He's also served as the national president of Ministers for Racial, Social, and Economic Justice. But so far we have Christian Nunez, the president of NOW, National Organization of Women, Donald Whitehead, the executive director of the National Coalition for the Homeless, Rudy Arredondo, who's going to speak after me, president of the National Latino Farmers and Ranchers Trade Association, Andrea Miller, Center for Common Ground, Joe Libertelli, UDC Law School, our own Mike Hirsch from PDA, and the list goes on.
Okay, well, you've done an incredible job of gathering these people. You also have Rudy Arredondo on the call. Rudy, do you want to tell us something? Joel, will you introduce?
Yeah. Well, we're going to roll a commercial for the conference so people understand what Rudy's doing. But Rudy has been working in leadership of Latino farmers and ranchers for decades, and actually grew up, whose parents were from Mexico. He grew up laboring in the fields, worked with Cesar Chavez. In all the years, the 23 years I was in DC, I saw Rudy on Capitol Hill all the time. And one of the great leaders in this country for social justice. He co-chairs the Justice Action Mobilization Network. And Rudy's going to talk about why this is so important that we have this roundtable, because he's dealing with the farmers out west who cannot grow their crops, they can't get water. Rudy, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the invitation. We have been dealing with issues that Stephen Miller, the Department of Agriculture, put out a program called Debt Relief for minority farmers that had been discriminated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And Stephen Miller and company filed 8 lawsuits in which they claimed that this was reverse discrimination for white farmers. So we're dealing with that. The ACLU is and the Southern Poverty Law Center are involved in assisting us with that legal issue. But one of the biggest concerns that we have is the fact that the agriculture food system is extremely destabilized. And the political cloud that rural America at one time used to have has been completely diluted, because everything now gravitates towards the urban areas where you have the amenities, broadband, which we don't have in rural America. But one of the concerns is that we need to see, irrespective of what label any of these people want to put on themselves. I just got back from California. 30% of the land in California, that food production, is going to be lay fallow. Now, California, as some of you that know that, is the 3rd largest economy in the world. When you eliminate 30% of your food production, land that produces food, there's going to be a major impact. Not to mention the fact that, you know, the drought and the wildfires are impacting. I just spoke with one of our leaders in California that runs our chapter, and he was saying that, you know, he can't get any water. And you have the big agriculture that have pumps, and so he has to wait until they finish because he is unable, he can't go deep enough in terms of getting water. So and it's all over the place. I mean, especially the Western states. The Western states are not getting the kind of attention that they need. Now, one of the concerns that we have, we're targeting the politicians, but the politicians are the ones that are actually controlling the legislative and political agenda. It's the donors. And so it is important for us to understand, how do we get to the donors? Because those are the people that are moving the political agenda for this country, and they couldn't care less. As long as they make money, they don't care. So think about it, you know.
Okay. And Rudy, you're going to be participating with us in all actions forward. We hope to see you at the roundtable.
You will.
Washington.
Thank you very much.
It'll be an honor to have you there. Joel Siegel, you want to jump in? We're down to 9 minutes on our recorded section, and then we're going to stay another 20 minutes for our unrecorded kibitz, in which, Lynn, you can revert to using the language that you used before. Joel, go ahead. You're muted. Joel, you're muted. Hold on, Joel. There you go. Okay.
Okay. Rudy is so well connected, you know, 40, 50 years of activism. He'll be bringing his colleagues to the round table. But what Rudy said this morning is that we cannot leave the politics to the politicians. We have to control our own destiny. It's also what TATANKA said. And but he's got a commercial, if it's 40 seconds, for his conference. I want to see Stephen Crusoe, if you'd be kind enough to show that.
Okay, 40 seconds. Here we go.
What is that? That's from the highway.
There we go.
Mark your calendars and please join us this year. October 28th, 29th, and 30th, 2021 at Isleta Pueblo in New Mexico for the second annual National Latino Farm and Ranch Congress. Mother Earth, La Tierra. Please join us at Isleta for the National Latino Farmers and Ranchers Trade Association National Gathering, Issues Forums, Farm and Ranch visits, documentary films, and awards ceremonies as a guest on native lands.
All right, thank you. That's October 28th and 29th. Thank you for that. I greatly appreciate it, Rudy. Arredondo, I had Art. Is Art on the phone here? Art hasn't been called on yet. Before we go, I do want to acknowledge Molly Baszler. Molly, on the recorded section here, Molly is a candidate for Los Angeles City Council. Molly, do you want to tell people how to get a hold of you? She, believe me, is as green as they get. And Molly, put your contacts and tell us about your campaign real quick.
Okay, hi, thank you, Harvey. I'm Molly Baszler. I'm running for Los Angeles City Council District 5. I'm running actually a green and regenerative campaign that no one's done, trying to, use no plastic at my events, less paper. We're just coming up with new and innovative ways. And I'm trying to create and be a leader in this and challenge the other candidates to do so, because the candidates all say they're worried about the climate emergency, but they're using so much waste. So I'm a climate reality leader. I live and breathe this, along with the homelessness and all of it, but I believe it's all interconnected. When you fix one, you fix the other, as Joel was talking about. So you can reach me at mollyla2022.com or Molly Baszler at greendreamcampaign.com in the chat. And I organized the launch of the Green Dream campaign, which was amazing. It was the first no plastic, vegan, democratic event ever at Jan Goodman's house. So it was pretty amazing. So it is possible. We need to completely change the way we do things or we will not survive.
Thank you, Molly. Again, put your comments in there. And Molly, I can say without a doubt, you are the real deal. So, having you on the LA City Council would be a huge, huge plus. So let's support your campaign and keep at it. Keep coming on our calls, please.
Well,
I've got Art Pacifico and then Dorothy Reich. We have 5 minutes left on the recorded part of our session, and we'll go to the unrecorded. Art?
This will be really quick. Somebody asked, I think it was Glenn, if there's a state strategy or plan, and one mechanism that's very powerful is a constitution in the US or a state constitutions, either one. The 50 states, each of them could have a constitutional amendment to, some of them do, to allow, to put the right to vote in the Constitution. And that's a fundamental right which cannot be changed by legislation. Whereas if you put a bill in, it can be reversed by the next Congress. So
Okay.
consider this strategy. I think Michigan has done this or is working on this. There are other states that can do it.
Yeah, and Michigan has also put in a transparent anti-gerrymandering a redistricting commission, which we need to really emulate. Dorothy Reich, did you want to say something or did you take your hand down? Oh, I think she took her hand down. Okay, we are at the end here. Dorothy, did you want to speak or not?
Talk to you another time.
Yes, there you go. Dorothy, go ahead.
Hi. Did you call on me? I hope.
I did. You had your hand up.
Okay, yeah. So this is kind of a little off topic, but I don't know how much people know about what's been going on in Egypt. Egypt has a dictator named El-Sisi, and he's been on an execution spree. Biden had promised not to give him any blank checks because of his human rights violations. I mean, the State Department wrote about it, Human Rights Watch wrote about it. So Ted Lieu wrote a letter, a dear colleague letter. And I'm just asking everybody, please call your congressman and please ask your congressman to sign on to Ted Lieu's dear colleague letter, which calls out Joe Biden for not keeping his campaign pledge and continuing to fund this dictator. I have friends and on Clubhouse calls with them, and they're distraught. They think that 12 people might be killed as soon as tomorrow. But he's been killing and torturing and raping and causing terror in Egypt for years now, and this has to stop.
Sorry to hear that. Thank you, Dorothy, and thank you for putting us in touch with that. We are at the end of our recorded session. I want to thank Joel Siegel for co-convening this with me. A pleasure always to work with Joel. Remember, our major events are coming up at the end of August, the 27th, an awards banquet, the 28th, major rallies to commemorate the I Have a Dream speech, the 29th, a prayer breakfast, and on the 30th, a drum circle in Lafayette Park, followed by a roundtable, which is going to be an action-oriented networking event. We will Zoom it, by the way. That's roughly the time of our normal Zoom calls. But in the meantime, we will be back next week, same time, same place, 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific on the Zoom call, engineered by the great Mike Hirsch and Steve Caruso. Same link will be useful. You'll get a notice Saturday morning and another one Monday morning. This has been another astounding call. We had up to 80 people. Number 57, the Heinz Memorial Call. And we thank you all. Thank you, Shoshi, for joining us. And so many of you, great people. Remember the KPFK fight, the Pacifica fight. This has been Harvey Sluggo Wasserman signing off from the recorded session. And those of you who want to curse.
Was there an Eve, or did we evolve from what we conceived? Either way, we got what we needed when the sun shone down on the Garden of Eden.
Don't you know we're gonna have a Solartopia, Solartopia, Solartopia. Don't you know we're gonna have a Solartopia all over God's green world.
Well, we bid that
So we had to work